All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the A Show Best of 2024 episode. The thing that you look forward to every year from us. You look forward to our WrestleMania prediction party. You look forward to our weekly, bi-weekly, however frequent it comes content. But the end of the year, wrapping it all up. Like I remember BET Notarized when they would do the top 100 music videos. Throwback, right? Throwback, right? Good times. Good times too.
Some
That's
people
a
just
great
found out what
pull.
that is. That was the first
Whoa.
time they've ever heard that.
Talk about
The fact that
unlocking
they-
a memory. Wow.
The fact that they had 100 music videos playing all day long, like you could just tap out, tap back in. They had number 53. Go eat, go take a nap, come back. They had number 32. Like, bro, it was insane. But we are giving you our version of A Show Notarized moments 10 through 6 from none other than the men with the pen, the Rewriters Room. I am, of course, 1/3 of our illustrious trio, Armon Sadler, the John Cena of journalism, the Brock Lesnar of broadcasting, the Roman Reigns of rhetoric, and the Paul Heyman of podcasting. I don't do this show alone. CC, what's up with you, my guy?
What's good? It's CC, best rapper and producer in the whole wide world. God body because I consume healthy products and do towel curls. Benevolent servant to the earth and philanthropist. And every phrase I say is a gem like amethyst. You could put any nigga next to me, and women gonna look at him like, who man is this? I may talk a lot, but I only got one thing to say. Love yourself. Keep going. You are the world. Give all you can. Take care of your body, your people, and your land. Where my nigga Chan?
In honor of the Iron Survivor, we do have a heart out, so I'm gonna keep it short. Shout out to Shinsuke Nakamura. I love a rebrand. I love reimagine yourself and bet on yourself. Shout out to the U.S. title.
Absolutely. So let's jump right into it. Moments 10 through 6. I appreciate them always saving top 10 moments for us. It means a lot. It makes us feel very special. I just heard moments 15 through 11 from the War Report, Cyrus and Quan, so shout out to them. But moment number 10, we are going over to AEW land. Sting wrestled his final match in AEW. And Sting was really important to that company. He was undefeated. His farewell was one of the biggest drawing shows domestically for AEW. Teamed up with Darby Allin, the guy who he had linked up with pretty immediately, and stood by throughout his entire time in AEW. How'd y'all feel about Sting's AEW run, and how'd you feel about his final match that he had?
One of my first forays into wrestling was in elementary school. We would go to the library and they had those encyclopedia books, and they had the WCW encyclopedia in there, and Sting was a prominent feature of that. And so in my mind, I always associate Sting with WCW, and I just love Sting because I love attraction wrestlers, and it takes a long time to get to that point in your career where just wrestling you is a thing, but Sting really is that. And so I always like that about Sting, that from it's the entrances to the dropping in to the face paint. I just like that Sting is it always felt like a moment when Sting was doing stuff. And I feel it might not be the, a 5-star banger, a Sting match. It might just be a couple of sharpshooters, but it's always cool when Sting does stuff. And I think that sometimes people forget that about wrestling. It's yeah, it is a sport, but it's also just supposed to be cool. And Sting is just cool, and so I like that. And Darby Allin was a cool foil understudy for that type of purpose. I think that is a good kind of prototype that a lot of older wrestlers could follow, that kind of tag team mentor, Rocky, Apollo, Adonis Creed type thing. So I just think it was a cool setup too for Darby Allin. Not to say that it's gone anywhere, but I think it was a cool plan to do.
I think Sting, given what he was given, did the best that he could do with it. One of the best things that I saw come out of it, or something that stood out to me, was I never really got the chance to watch him when I was younger. I was strictly on WWE. I always told myself oh, I'll watch a WCW show, and then by the time that came, they were getting bought out and whatnot. So I missed a lot of that stuff and didn't spend a lot of time going back. But when he was there live, it was funny because you see him coming back, let's call it 30 years later past where he was prime Sting, as far as popularity, but he's still standing out amongst the people that are there right now. And I think that is the biggest testament to what Sting is and / was. It was his it's just sort of felt like this thing where it was like no matter what the time was, it didn't feel like it needed a time for it to be cool. Like the idea of Sting is just cool, period. So I thought that was really, really cool getting to see him do that. And also it was just really funny. Also, it's always funny to see an older wrestler get frustrated with younger wrestlers when things go wrong sometimes. So that was kind of cool to see too. I'm not gonna lie.
You guys want to hear a quick Sting fun fact?
Sure.
Oh, what's that?
Sting has been Pro Wrestling Illustrated Wrestler of the Year 4 times. Do you know who he shares that record with? Think like the ultimate people.
Steve Austin, The Rock.
No.
Hulk Hogan.
No, you're like missing
it. John Cena.
Yes,
Bret Hart. Oh, John Cena. Oh, wow.
Him and John Cena shared that record. So that's how poppin' Sting is. Him and John Cena are the only people to be 4 times Wrestler of the Year. I feel like younger people like think Sting's like the Undertaker, which he kind of is, but like at a point he was doing like the Super Cena thing. Like Sting took the Sting mask off and was Sting underneath, and it popped like everybody. Like Sting was that cool.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit I didn't watch a lot of him in AEW, but the fact that they let him keep the undefeated record even throughout his farewell match, beating the Young Bucks, retaining the AEW tag titles at Revolution this past March, I thought AEW did a good job of maintaining his aura. He's someone who transcended pop culture, similar to what y'all were saying. He was this like mythical wrestling figure that whenever I would talk wrestling with people who were older than me, they would always bring Sting up. Like, yo, Sting, this guy, Sting is lit. And then I finally get to see him when I had my brief TNA watching phase. Saw him come to WWE. Yes. And yeah, I'd say, you know, that they did a really good job with his farewell. They've obviously signed a lot of older acts and a lot of former WWE veterans who haven't panned out as well as Sting, but Sting was a constant, interesting figure for them, which I think did a lot for them. And, you know, with Revolution being one of their highest drawing shows like that, I'm sure that meant a lot to him, meant a lot to them as well. Even if the draw was Sting, it really wasn't anything else that they were doing. But, you know, it still ended up working out for them. So I give them credit for maintaining his aura, letting him have a good farewell. We've seen like Bryan Danielson's farewell, for example. That was just crazy. We've seen some really bad farewells in pro wrestling, but AEW gave that respect to Sting. So salute to that. And yeah, we can move right along to moment number 9. Sami Zayn officially ends Gunther's undefeated streak at WrestleMania 40, wins the Intercontinental Championship. I have to say, man, this was, and I definitely want to give the credit to Gunther and talk about him, but the Sami part of it all, I remember in the Discord and this conversations I was having with people, we were trying to figure out who Gunther's opponent was going to be at WrestleMania. We all want the Brock Lesnar-Gunther match, but it was clear Brock was not going to be involved in wrestling at any time. And from my perspective, Sami was above the Intercontinental title at this point. Even with how big Gunther made it, I felt like Sami should have been in the world title picture. So I thought Gable was going to get the match, and we talked about it off camera, but Gable had lost to Gunther so many times, but I thought they would finally give him that hero's kind of victory, that, you know, that struggle up to winning it at the biggest show. And then you see Sami beat Gable in that qualifier match. You're like, okay, I mean, I'm never going to complain about Sami Zayn getting a title match at WrestleMania. I do think that he'd already won the Intercontinental title a bunch of times too, so it was like it didn't mean as much. But when you see that match and you see the build up to it and Sami's fighting spirit and that brain buster, just the drama, and me being there live, like I was sitting up in the suite just in awe at what I was watching. Like I know Gunther's work, I know Sami's work, but you put them together and they really made something magical there. It was an awesome moment for Sami, and definitely still one of my matches of the year. So I really love that match. But Chan, Gunther is your mid-card messiah. So please talk about the undefeated streak, the 666-day Intercontinental title reign that Gunther had.
Who could have thought when he defeated Ricochet that we would be witnessing history? Who could have foreseen that Ricochet would be a part of history? You know, I will always be thankful for him for that, no matter what he says. But no, I think like we just talked about, like Gunther really elevated not just again the title, but also like the mid card. Like he made the IC title match like a main event worthy match. Another fun fact I found out, you know who he passed up for the longest IC champion in like the 20th century?
It'll have to be Miz.
No.
Who else had a long reign?
You weren't gonna guess this one. Shelton Benjamin. It was 244 days. And he got when he passed 245, he passed Shelton Benjamin. So shout out to Shelton Benjamin. But yeah, Gunther, I think that was the thing. It wasn't necessarily winning the IC title, it was beating Gunther and ending the streak. Like it was like that, it was kind of like the reward for Sammy. Because I think that's how it felt like to me. It felt like Sammy is due a big favor because of all the bloodline work he's truly like helped carry. We need to give him another big solo win. And I feel like this was just like the place they had open, and that's where it'll begin. The match was incredible. The drama with like the wife, and like you saw the real heel Gunther come out. You saw the power bombs and the kickouts. Like it was a great, like just a drama-filled match. But I definitely feel like it was about Sammy took down Gunther, and that's one of those things where like years from now, Sammy will have that as a thing where it's like, I beat you at Mania. You never beat me at Mania. Like he can always refer to that. And I think that's even like another bonus of this match.
I think like when I look at that, to me it's like Sammy is the perfect wrestler to tell like the basic story of wrestling, to where you see two people fighting, you want to know why, and then you just like watch the entire match or the fight or whatever. Specifically in the sense that when you think about Gunther, you're like, okay, who can beat him? You start to like rationalize it. Maybe they need to be this big or whatever. And like he's beating guys who are the same size as him, bigger. He's beating guys who are smaller than Sammy. So then you go like, okay, why Sammy? And then boom, that's like the story of wrestling right there. Because Sammy, in and of itself, he is like the embodiment of just the heart of a wrestler. Like that's his character to a T. Like he literally is like the personification of that in wrestling. So when you think of like, okay, how do we beat this guy who's like world-class wrestler? Like when you think about it, like he has no holes in his game, blah, blah, blah. Let's make it not about wrestling. Let's make it about the real story of wrestling, which is like somehow just overcoming Sammy. So like seeing that play out in real time was like, I don't know, it kind of made me feel like I was watching a story from like maybe when like my dad was a kid or something like that, and they were able to keep it current. So it felt really classic. It felt like I was watching something play out that I'd already sort of seen or heard about as far as a trope or a storyline, but like watching it be executed was just like, wow, it just felt nice, you know? so yeah.
No, 100%. It was a major heartwarming moment. It was like the Bible, the David versus Goliath in the Bible, something like that. And I have
the Kevin
quote,
Owens hype up thing too before the match.
Oh
Kevin
my
Owens,
God.
like come on, amazing. Like that was really cool too. That was awesome.
Amazing. Like I have to quote the legendary receiver Michael Irvin when I say, God didn't send Goliath for your destruction. He sent him for your construction. God puts great challenges in front of great men to bring out greatness.
KO was on the gorilla and all fours looking like Michael Irvin looking at it.
Said, I showed Goliath to show that within David is a giant slayer. That was really a bar. I ain't gonna hold you. Like when he really think about that, that's a bar.
He could. He could. So listen to everybody. Nobody believes in you. What are you prepared to do about that?
Come on.
And a very underrated part is like it shifted Gable from being Gunther's op to Sammy's op.
Yep.
And Gable, who lost to Gunther mad times, trained Sammy to beat him, had to watch Sammy beat him, and then was like, hold on, like, what do I get out of this? And gave us a really good story throughout the summer too. So
wait,
overall, amazing.
Sammy was basically how Gunther became a little bit more of a face and how Chad became more of a heel. They used Sammy to turn that whole thing around. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Sammy completely humbled Gunther, and now we've got the guy we have now, the world heavyweight champion, who's still a little insecure. Like this, he's lost twice this year. He hadn't lost since like 2022 against Braun Breaker. So it's like, yeah. So amazing moment and amazing what it led to. Let's jump into moment number 8, multiple moments rather. AEW wins the free agency. What do we want to call it? The free agency sweepstakes and signs Kazuchika Okada, Mercedes Moné, and Will Ospreay. this was big for them. I mean, they ended up getting a lot of free agents over the years that people have called game changers, and people thought that they would shift the company. But Okada specifically, leaving New Japan Pro Wrestling, huge deal. Like, people didn't see that coming. He was always someone I remember, like, I want to see Okada Roman, I want to see Okada Gunther, blah blah blah. I wasn't too familiar with this game. I've never watched New Japan, but just the way people talked about him, it had me excited for it. So when it seemed like things would open up for him, I was like, I hope he comes to WWE, because we see WWE does great things with people that they sign, and people who have this resume coming into the company from all these other promotions. Mercedes Moné, of course, I mean, it was just years of uncertainty with her. Is she going to come back to WWE? Where is she going to go? She did her own New Japan run, got injured, and it was just kind of at the point where it's like, all the fanfare that she got, people wanted to see that kind of followed up on. People wanted to see her really capitalize on getting a big moment. And of course, last but most certainly not least, Will Ospreay, big name, incredibly talented. Like, I regardless of what his booking might be, in terms of people I've watched in the ring, he's one of the best wrestlers I've ever seen in ring. Someone who they wanted to come to WWE, someone they wanted to see go up against Seth Rollins after their little back and forth tweets, several years ago. But AEW ended up winning. They got some big names. Fellas, how do you all feel about those three, their runs in AEW so far? If things can possibly change, and if you would want to see any of the three come over to WWE at some point.
I'll get mine out the way real quick because it's real simple. My take. All three of them had the same exact story, and the story was, let's build, let's the idea, which is what if Mercedes Moné, or what if Okada, or what if Will Ospreay was in AEW? That sat for a little bit. Then it was, oh, they can actually go. What does it look like to actually get them there, or whatever? Then it was, it's looking like they're signing. And then it was like, okay, they're signing, they're gonna debut, and then they do that, and like that's where the energy basically fell off. Like, you get 2 weeks in, and it's just kind of flat from there. Which I don't really have that much of a problem with. You can't guess when your debuts are going to hit the way they're going to hit. My issue with them is, like, all three of them I see as people who are like easily, you can plug them into a program easily to sort of like heat it up. And I feel like that part of them has been wasted. And when I look at the program, I'm like, well, if you just took them out of here and put them over there, that might balance some things out. You know what I mean? So for me, my biggest takeaway from all of their runs that I'm seeing so far is, like, I love that their matches get to be seen by more people. I love especially Okada and Ospreay. But I think the biggest thing that we need to see from all three of them is something that we can't see in New Japan or WWE or anywhere else. I think it's a bigger indictment on the rest of like the industry to show that these three people are going to AEW. It means something is there. It means there's an opportunity. But for me, I'm like, I'm not seeing that though. I want to see that. So
I think of the three, I like Mercedes Moné the best. I think she is one of the few people in wrestling who, while she's strangely like not, she's like a okay promo. She's like has like mainstream. She's like good at doing like interviews and stuff. Like, she's much better at like being a celebrity than a lot of wrestlers are, I guess I should say. And so I think that like that is at one of AEW's like few hopes at this point, is that they can really get one of their wrestlers to pop off and be a celebrity, because it seems like they're not going to build a wrestler in the traditional way that we see, where it's like you build up a champion for a long time, they become super famous, like The Rock, John Cena, Batista, then you find out they're good actors. They're just gonna have to get somebody dumb famous. And so I think Mercedes Moné gives you a high likelihood of that happening. Like, if it's gonna be anyone, she was already in the Star Wars show, like that's your best bet at somebody popping off like that. As you guys talk about, and as we're gonna talk about in the next segment, AEW's issues are like structural. and there's like not really any individual wrestler or group of wrestlers who can like fix some of that stuff. And so like it falls into the same trap like you're kind of talking about. But I do think, again, to Mercedes Moné's credit, if she ends up storming out of AEW the same way she did WWE, I think that might be one of those things where we'll look back and be like, yeah, that was like the nail in the coffin. That's when we were like, yeah, this is done now. Because I think if they can't make that work, I don't know what's the point of this? Like at that point, like, is this just going to be the Young Bucks tag champs forever? Like that's what we're going to over.
They still have Adam Copeland.
I mean, I like some of AEW's wrestlers. I'm just saying, like, Mercedes Moné was such a big act. It's like I'm a Falcons fan. It's like the Kirk Cousins thing. It's like if you can't make this work, this is cooked. Like this is done. You got to get him out of here. Like the whole coach got to go, GM got to go, everybody got to go. And so it's like if you can't make Mercedes Moné work, that's an indictment of everybody, and everybody got to go. So it's like one of those things. I think that's like a big red flag at that point.
I'm right with you as a Jets fan who had to watch Aaron Rodgers and the Jets lose in overtime today and get eliminated from playoff contention. But yeah, I think they're doing the best. Like if I had to rank how they're doing with each of these three big acquisitions, Mercedes is being booked the best. You do kind of have to look at the women differently in AEW specifically because they're not as prioritized. And I think for her, I really can't imagine her ever being disgruntled over there. They've given her everything. She became champion within a few months. She's got another title. Like she's constantly getting TV time, promo time. She's given multiple heaters. Like she's getting everything over there. But I think it's to the detriment of the entire division, and I think it's kind of on the flip side with Okada and Ospreay, the way that they were talked about. And you see what they're doing now. Like, yeah, Okada's what? The Continental champion or whatever. I don't even know.
One of those. They changed the name a bunch of times.
Yeah, like one of them is the International, one of them is the Continental. Like they like these dudes out here like making names off of like restaurants. Like this is the International House of Titles. Like I don't know what it is, but from what I've seen, and again, I'm not too familiar with their game prior to AEW, but I've seen Ospreay lose a lot of big matches. I saw Okada lose on Rampage to Kyle Fletcher. They're really trying to make this Kyle Fletcher thing happen, and good for him. But again, you have these guys who have this international appeal, all of this draw. Like, bro, think about Cody Rhodes when he came in. Came in hot, won at WrestleMania against Seth Rollins, beat Seth Rollins 3 matches in a row, got injured, which made him even more hot when he came back, won the Royal Rumble, lost his first match at WrestleMania against Roman Reigns, making everyone want to see him get his comeuppance against Roman Reigns. Went on a year-long journey where he lost to Brock Lesnar, won the tag titles and then lost them, lost a triple threat match only because Brock Lesnar beat him up, won the Royal Rumble again, lost a match to Drew McIntyre via interference, finished his story. He's only got like 6-7 losses in the last 2-3 years of him being back in WWE. But they booked him to where the investment was there. He was kept strong. His losses made sense. It's not making sense with Okada and Ospreay, and they're so talented. And as much as like you want to say like wrestling fans shouldn't get consumed by the losses, you should see the long-term vision. I don't know what the long-term vision is with those two, because those two, to me, based off of, again, how they're talked about and their ability, they're things you capitalize on immediately. WWE brought in Motor City Machine Guns. They got the tag titles within 2 weeks, and it's been good. It's been good. Like that's what Braun Breaker goes to Raw, has the Intercontinental title within 4 months. Like that's just what you do.
Look at Julia.
Julia, Stephanie
Vaquer, Zarya.
Like
they're all immediately in the mid to the top card in NXT already.
Yeah, like people love new people, especially when they're talented. Like you if you see the way they're presented, and you're like, I want things for them. You give them those things, it yields benefits for your company. So the Okada Ospreay stuff, to me, I don't know if it's fully over, but they have a steep hill to climb to get to where like Ospreay can really be a draw for them, and something where it's like, all right, like the rest of the stuff might be nonsense, but I know Ospreay is doing important stuff and he actually can win. And Okada, same thing. And I know Okada's like a little older, but like it just hasn't really been done well from my very limited perspective on them prior to this and what I've seen put on TV. And I mean, it goes back to a chance that it's a structural thing with them. But moving on to people talking about the structural issues with AEW, moment number 7, CM Punk linked up with who I believe I'd even put him. I'd put him I'd put him on like at the top of the list, and then like I'm like number 2 in terms of who does the best wrestling interviews. Ariel Helwani, CM Punk really put it all out there, man. He talked about his time in AEW, the major moments, brawl out, brawl in. He talked about, getting fired and how quickly it came together for him to return to WWE. For you guys, what were your favorite moments from that interview, or what came out of it? Because we saw there were a lot of reactions online. AEW reacted, decided to put the footage out, all because CM Punk is just this catalyst for chaos always, and I love it so much as a recovering and able to proudly be once again CM Punk Mark. Like it just warmed my heart.
I personally, it's funny because I have like no dog in the CM Punk fight. And so this is all like good content to me. The thing that surprised me is like we've talked about, like to AEW just seems like you let the high school kids run the school play. Like, yeah, you'd have some cool scenes, some cool set decorations, but they would forget to sell the tickets. Some kid would fall off a scaffolding and get hurt. Like it just wouldn't do the details. And that's exactly what it talked about. But when he was like, I had to get surgery, I had to pay for it, they didn't help me find I'm like, so you're just really not running a real company. Like it just seems so like fly by night. It just like stunned me. Or like the thing with the glass, it's like I guess I never realized that's what the beef was actually about. I thought it was something about him being like injury prone. I didn't realize it was about, no, bro, you can't break no rental car. Like that's such a crazy idea that a kid would come up with, and it would take an adult being like, that is crazy. We can get a car and do whatever, but we're not going to do this to a Hertz Toyota Camry. Like we're not doing that. And so like, that's what stunned me. Like, oh, it is exactly what you think it's like back there. Like, and that's why he gets over here and he's like, yeah, I'm glad this is run by adults. And even if I don't like all the adults, they at least got common sense. Cause that like, as person who I guess like, deals a lot of nonsense at work, that would send me over the edge too. So I'd be like, oh, y'all are so crazy. Like y'all aren't even thinking logically here. Regardless of like safety, this is just dumb. And so that's really what stood out to me. It was like, oh yeah, it's really exactly as bad as you think it is over there.
Yeah, that's the key word for me that you said is adult. Because even when I listen to that, if you go back and you listen to old Punk interviews, like for example, I was watching the Paul Heyman doc the other day, and you can tell that Punk is a lot more petty. You get like it's something behind. He was trying to be measured in the documentary, and you could tell he was still angry. Like I can tell that he was still angry at that time. Whereas now, coming out of it, like coming out of that situation, coming out of a lot of situations he had already been in, and then going into that interview, it seemed like he had moved past a lot of things, including his time with them, and he wasn't really that upset about it. So like the biggest thing that I saw was like, for years I've been hearing about CM Punk who's like rubbing people the wrong way. And I'm watching this interview and I'm like, hey, regardless of where he's came from, I'm looking at somebody who's like, who doesn't want to be bothered anymore. Yeah. I'm getting very much like the old man energy that I have where it's like, hey, you got it, bro, type stuff. But at the same time, he's being honest or whatever about his experience. And the biggest, one of my favorite thing about it, I would say, is that my favorite thing about CM Punk is his ability to tell a story both like in the ring and on the mic. Like I love his on the mic skills. And it felt like he was like his ability to be able to just be honest, but also at the same time still like have that apply as a good ass promo is one of my favorite things about him. So that's what like the whole interview was to me, where it was like he was literally just answering questions, but it still worked. If you wanted to cut it up and use that shit as a promo against him, you still could. It was fire.
It's like, bro, like everyone understands what someone's like, bro. I was at this job and they was on some bullshit, and like, and now let me tell you what they was doing, like. It was just so, I think, relatable in that way. Like, that was like, I feel you.
Yeah, no, 100%. I gotta admit, I've watched that. I've watched that interview like a few times, and like I get the general gist of it, but something sticks out to me and makes me laugh like differently every time. The fact that he said Tony's not a boss, like he's just a nice guy, like crazy to say about someone. But I mean, again, like when we look at the product, when we look at the madhouse it is over there, like is it Cap? Is like we all perceive.
You working up jobs, you haven't been there before.
We all had a bad boss, bro. Everyone knows what it looks like, bro. I feel
100%.
as someone who's 30 plus, bro. I feel him, bro.
That's why you can't hide it. Like I think that's why it feels like they playing in our face because it's like, bro, we didn't all had like we'd had managers like you before. We know what this looked like.
Yeah. But I think one of the most entertaining things was like obviously him returning to WWE, Nick Khan being like, yo, you didn't have a non-compete, like we could have brought you in sooner. And he was like, yeah, like I was just at home chilling. Like,
what are we doing here? Tony doesn't like lawyers. Like, what's happening?
It's like when your girl crush like leave her man or whatever, and you find out that he wasn't even saying like I love you and shit. It's like, wait, that's the floor? Like, damn, that's the bar? Like, okay.
And like, and you was just over there dealing with that? Like you,
oh, this gonna be okay.
When I was right here, ready to love you.
It's crazy. Like it's crazy. It's
And I go ahead.
You go.
Yeah, I was gonna say I also appreciated his commentary on Vince McMahon because very understandably, we've seen a lot of superstars who have said like, "Oh yeah, what happened is terrible," but like he's my friend. Like I'm gonna stick by him. Blah blah blah. All that. Completely get it. It's a real thing in life. People, as much as people are villainized on the internet, there are people who are friends with problematic people who stick by them. I don't necessarily love it, but it's the reality of it. CM Punk really demystified the whole Vince father figure thing. He was like, Vince wasn't my father figure. He was just my boss. Like I have a dad already. Like, and so like with what he did, it's terrible. And I can't believe how stupid he was about it. We've never heard anyone really be so blunt about the situation. Like, yo, Vince was wilding and he was dumb about wilding because like you could wild out, but then wild out in a smart way. And CM Punk was like, yeah, no, he was wilding out and he wasn't smart about it. So it is what it is. But that is moment number 7. Getting to moment number 6. Can we all put our ones up, please? Ones in the air. Ones in the air. SummerSlam, we got the return of the newly named OTC Roman Reigns. Now, if you've been listening to my content, if you follow me on social media, you know I was against the bloodline when it came to Cody Rhodes finishing his story. But when things broke down following WrestleMania, Solo Sikoa, Spike Jimmy, Tama Tonga debuted and this new bloodline formed. I had to go back to, prior to Roman facing Drew, and I had to rock with Roman Reigns again. And well, what a journey we've experienced since April. Solo Sikoa takes over, breaks Paul Heyman's phone, Tama Tonga debuts, Tonga Loa debuts, Jacob Fatu debuts. They powerbomb him through a table at MSG. And then Solo pins Cody Rhodes at Money in the Bank and gets a title match at SummerSlam. And we're like, is Solo about to win this title, bro? Like, there's no way. This can't happen. And we get another Bloodline Rules match, which, stacks the deck against Cody. But right when all seemed like madness, we hear that new theme hit. That man walks out, and that aura, you could just feel it through the screen. Roman Reigns returned after 4 months. How did y'all feel about the formation of the new bloodline, the growth of Solo, how each character kind of fits in but also stands out, and that leading to Roman Reigns coming back?
We talked about it on one of the Rewriters Room episodes. I remember because I remember saying like the issue is my issue with early Solo, Enforcer Solo, was he has no personality outside of this. And when Roman was gone, did such a good job of letting him be his personality. And like even from like the outfit was way cooler. They gave him shoes. The blazer with the t-shirt and the chain is cool. The finger gloves
shoes is crazy.
He was not wearing shoes.
Bare feet, taped up feet.
But it just felt like out of context. If you walk into the conversation, it sounded like he talking about like some nigga off the street.
Yeah, they gave him shoes and a blanket. No, but like honestly,
changed that broke nigga's life.
They really did. They gave him a chain and everything. They changed that broke nigga's life. And so like it was just cool to see he's like really funny and they really let him establish himself. And I think he also, it's just so funny because you really realize they are really related because it's like your like little brother or little cousin has such a different like standing amongst his friends. And that's exactly what Solo needed was like, yeah, when he's with his big cousins, he's not going to look as cool. But when he's with his friends, his age, He's
Mhm.
cool. He's funny. He's talking.
Mhm.
And I think Roman being away gave him space to do that. And I think they did
Yeah.
a really good job with that. And I think that was honestly the biggest benefit of Roman being gone, is that Solo had to step up, and he did. And I gotta give him applause, because I was worried at first. I was like, I don't know what's gonna happen to him when Roman goes away.
It was rough. I really didn't love it. Like it seemed really repetitive. They were just beating people up. Okay, the debut Tom. I think Tom has been awesome. I love Tama Tonga. Tongaloa comes in. Tongaloa is funny. You know, needs some work in the ring, but you know, it was kind of like, all right, where are we going? And then Jacob comes. It's like, oh shit, this nigga's a fucking enigma. He is crazy, super talented. The people on the internet gas him up a little too much. Like he's not this greatest wrestler, better than Roman that people make him seem, but he's dope. He's dope.
got 7 fire moves.
Yes,
Now it's 7, but they fire, bro. Like,
That's a good number to start with.
he can build, exactly. He can build, but yeah, some people be like you're gassing it, bro. Like he has some bangers, but it's not a full catalog of hits, bro.
Yeah, but they've been awesome. And then Cece, I want to bring it to you with Roman coming back and with him being faced against this faction of new, just savage dudes. Obviously, he had to bring together his gang, and that was tough for him. And he still hasn't even fully humbled himself. But like, how do you feel about the reformation of the original bloodline, specifically? Roman still acting like old Roman, but all of them kind of submitting to him a little bit still, but him ultimately realizing like, yo, I need people.
I think the biggest thing that stands out to me is like when Paul would talk, when Paul would talk, like maybe a year or two ago about how you never know what's coming next. I think that's Roman kind of refreshed that, because there's never a time since he's come back where I feel like I have him figured out. I feel more confused about him now than I probably ever have. I think that's the biggest thing that comes out of this. And then the second thing that really stands out to me is when we go back to talking about how we're bringing in all these people from the bloodline, and also at the same time reforming the new bloodline, seeing all these different characters take all these different story arcs. It goes back to what Roman said at that one press conference. I forget which PLE it was after, but when he said, "Rising tide lifts all ships," or whatever. And it's like, he's like, bro, I'm so hot, I could take people that y'all know and make them go crazy. Then I could bring in my little cousin, make them go crazy. Then I could go and, off the strength of the story that I left, bring in new people, not even be there, and then they go crazy. And just by me showing up, that just validated the craziness that y'all was feeling. Like, to me, this is like the formation of the new bloodline, and also bringing back the old bloodline and having all these characters develop in the way that they do is the biggest flex of this entire storyline, because it says I'm so important that all of this shit matters. And I'm like, you got a point. That's crazy.
Bro, we were having conversations in the Discord about whether Jey Uso is more over than Roman Reigns right now. And that is an insane conversation to have.
I would have slapped the shit out you 6 years ago.
It wasn't one sided either. It wasn't one sided, bro. Like, yeah,
it's madness. Sami Zayn is obviously who he is. People are invested in Jimmy Uso as a babyface. Like it's just, and then you think about the impact they have on people outside of the family. Seth Rollins, Drew McIntyre, CM Punk, Cody Rhodes, who Roman teamed up with along the way, like Bronson Reed. Like, this story has been the nucleus for the WWE over the last 4 years, and it goes beyond people just wanting them to do long-term storytelling, but to do main plots, subplots along the way, like things that spill out and just like different webs. Like it's not just a straight line.
There's inside jokes. Like there's like, oh, Sammy did the handshake with Jimmy. You remember back? Like that's how deep it is. Like, there's lore.
There's other people still suffering the consequences of what happened to them years ago. Look at the Street Profits. Bro. That's all because of the bloodline and the Usos reign that they in this position right now.
Kevin Owens.
Yeah, that's crazy. Imagine 6 of Triple H's cousins just running, WWE. Just imagine that. We just accept that as like because we're singing, but like think how crazy that is. Imagine if it was just 6 of Stone Cold Steve Austin's brothers and cousins just running WWE. It's really, like I said, a testament to how powerful that storyline is. That literally my distant cousins who you never heard of are main eventing PLEs, and you're dying for it, bro. In that War Games, they was all related, damn near. Like it was like it was like 3 cousins. It was like 3 people who was not related to them in a 10-person match.
Punk, Sammy, and Bronson. Yep. Otherwise, they was all.
And Bronson looked like they cousins.
I was about to say Bronson is not too. He's not too many. Like I don't think you got to go
whatever
far.
he is, bro.
He
from New Zealand, right?
Australia.
Australia? Yeah, bro, you don't gotta go far. You don't gotta go far.
Nah. We're gonna have to get on one of them them websites and like check your DNA and see like yo Bronson, like bro. You really might be blood, big dog. But
imagine that tree graphic, how big that shit would be.
Right. Oh my god. And the War Games match itself, which we kind of touched on, just fantastic match. It's probably my favorite War Games match since they brought it to the main roster. And even with
roster for sure.
Yeah. I mean, like even the NXT ones I've watched, like it's up there with those. And I think to close the loop from 2022 when it was Roman, Jay, Jimmy, Sammy, Solo standing next to each other, going against the Brutes, Drew and KO. And then the following year is Jay and Sammy in there. Jay and Sammy are both haven't lost in War Games yet, so salute to them for that. But to bring it like full circle, and there's still so much to come. I think that this story that people have been so ready to be done with continues to get more and more entertaining. And it's a credit to Roman, it's a credit to Jay, Jimmy, Sammy, Paul Heyman, all of the creative, the new guys that have come in. This is probably the most enjoyable time I've had as a wrestling fan, and this story is a big part of it. So
we didn't even talk about them. Jesus.
yeah. I mean, that's gonna come later. That's gonna come later.
That'll be part of.
That's how good the story was.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah. Him and his random pop up at Bad Blood. Like this guy I think he is. But anywho, that is moments 10 through 6 on the A Show Best of 2024 episode. Of course, we are the men with the pen. We will now be passing you along to J5 and Meals once again to close things off, moments 5 through 1 for the best of 2024. Thank you all for rocking with the A Show RNC for yet another year. Rewriters Room will be back at the top of 2025 to continue our rewrite of the Bloodline story. And as it continues going, we're going to continue going. So we might be on the best of 2025 episodes still talking about, hey, Bloodline's still going. We got more to rewrite. So, but until then, for myself, for CC, for Chan, we are closing the door to the Rewriters Room. Keep your pen sharp. The Rewriters Room door has been locked. Thank you.